This conference will now be recorded.
Awesome. Wanted for us to have the opportunity today to also hear from development. I know for you that are all of you that are LPCs, our budgets are going to be due on the 15th, and I know there's been a lot of questions about what fundraising is going to look like in 2021. So wanted to have them come on and talk a little bit about our major fundraisers in the field. So to kick it off, Wendy, you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Thanks everybody for joining this and for being so active in what you guys do. You guys do so much, and we know that, and we're very grateful. I'm going to cover this really quickly, but if you've got any questions at any time, you're always welcome to reach me in my email or on my phone, however it works best for you. I'm happy to help whatever way I can make sure that we can get those funds in your budgets. So let's talk raffle really quickly. It's raffle season. It's hard to believe, but raffle season is going to happen. We have you guys will be able to do table sales. You can have athletes go door to door. You can basically do all the methods that we've used in the past, just with following some very specific protocol for COVID. You're already familiar with those procedures. It's what we had you guys do in the Fall Basketball Challenge. But I will be sending out a ton of information when I send out raffle tickets, which will take place probably the first week in November. So in there, you'll have the raffle tickets. If you've requested posters, we will be mailing posters as well for you guys. And then there will be a packet full of information. And it's information on screening. It's information on the steps you need to make sure you have, signage you can put up for table sales to make sure that there's proper social distancing, mask requirements, all those types of elements. It's all spelled out very clearly in the handouts that you'll be receiving. But if there's any question on what you get, please let me know and we'll be happy to walk through those steps with you. Just lost my train of thought already. There we go. Okay, so anyway, raffle's happening. You'll get everything first couple of weeks. If you've got questions on that, let me know. Also with raffle sales, Murdoch's has again opened their stores to athlete sales to be taking place throughout the month of February, every Saturday except for the 13th, which is always their Double Your Chances Day. So if you've got a Murdoch's near you, stay tuned. We'll get a sign up. I'm not sure, Mandy, are we going to use Sign Up Genius? Probably. We'll get Sign Up Genius out there so that you guys can start signing up for those Saturdays in February, knowing that you get a lot of traffic from there. So be sure to utilize that. Murdoch's is excited to see you guys back. And the other thing, online sales will be taking place as usual. We'll start those the first week of November also. It'll look a little better. The site will look a little better, hopefully a little bit easier to use. And there's always a place in there where they can refer, you know, if you've got somebody buying a ticket, they can still reference the athlete or the team that they want that sale to go through. So it worked out well. It's pretty tedious on our side, but we can make it count for you guys. So the only thing I didn't do last year was when you had sales that took place online, I put them in our system, but I didn't notify you guys of those sales taking place, which was in error on my part. So my apologies for how we did it last year. We were just trying to scramble through and make it work. But for this next year, at the end of a week, I will let you guys know if you had athlete specific sales or if you had team sales as well. So I think that's all I know for sure. But it's in a nutshell, we're just moving forward as quickly as we can, but as safely, of course. We do ask that a lot of you teams always had athletes who were required to sell tickets. We don't want to force athletes who are uncomfortable to be out there selling tickets if they're uncomfortable due to COVID. So if you had those requirements before, maybe you can see about driving those sales online so they can still be a part of those fundraising opportunities and still be a part of what your teams need, but we can just put it in an environment to where they are safe and protected. So oh, I forgot one thing. Sorry. For those athletes who are going to be going door to door, it'll be in your packet of information. But if your athletes are going to businesses or somebody's home, they need to list every place they go, and that is just to keep them safe. And then in the event that they were to contact COVID, we need to have a tracing part to make sure that we notify those people that they had exposure. So it's going to be more involved, but it is to keep everybody as safe as possible. So, questions for me? Okay. Go for it,
Wendy,
guys.
did you want to talk about real quick just when they should expect tickets to, if all of you should have put your ticket request in either with your area director, your raffle coordinator, or your outreach coordinator. So if you haven't gotten those into us or haven't talked to anybody about what tickets you need, reach out to myself and Nancy, and we'll make sure to get that on Wendy's list. But Wendy, when do you expect those to be getting to them?
I would expect those to you guys the first week in November. The only thing that's different is we are going to be mailing posters this year. So if you have, it's like, oh shoot, I didn't request posters. Please make sure you're reaching out to Nancy, who's keeping track of all this information for us, so that we can let you know how many large posters, how many small posters, however many posters you want, so that you can use those resources when you're out selling.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy. Nancy just put in the chat bar for if you want to request them posters, we have an easy to fill out form. You can go ahead and do that. So make sure to fill that out. Yeah, but we appreciate it. Thank you, Wendy. Any raffle questions? Okay, awesome. So we will go ahead and move forward then with Polar Plunge. Matt, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Mandy. Yeah, so polar plunges this year, especially 2020, is going to look a little bit different with us rolling out the virtual polar plunges. Basically, we've got it broken down into a little 5-step process. We'll have there we go. Thank you. We'll have this available on the website as well. But, step 1, same as always, get out there, fundraise, donate. With this one being virtual, we are encouraging the plungers to use Classy as their virtual fundraising site. That'll help minimize the face-to-face interactions, going door to door. If athletes or plungers want to go door to door, we do have the same protocols in place as the raffle tickets. So we do have those safety procedures there. Step 2, plan your plunge. We want it to be fun for everybody. We want people to use their imagination, come up with some different ways to liven this up a little bit. On the website, we're telling people, take a dip in your icy pool, do an ice bath, make a snow angel, have a water balloon fight, water gun fight, hose fight, whatever in the front yard in the snow. And then encouraging people, like we said, to come up with something they're on their own. We're going to have awards for the most creative plunge. So we have that out there. We are emphasizing safety on this. So we don't want to see people jumping into frozen bodies of water like a river or a lake without some type of safety divers or somebody present there to help them out. Step 3 is going to be to record their plunge. Pretty self-explanatory there. Step 4 is going to be uploading the plunge to the plunge website. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull all those plunge videos together and create a virtual plunge that we're going to air on Facebook on the day that the plunge would normally have happened in the live face-to-face. So this will be the layout for all of 2020. 2021 right now is kind of shaping up to be a hybrid season where we'll have the virtual option for all of the plunges for those that are uncomfortable coming or high risk and would prefer to stay home. They'll have the option to do the virtual plunge, and we'll do the same process with them. And we also have some of the plunges that are pushing forward with doing the traditional face live plunge. So more to come on those as we get there, but this is kind of our process right now for the 2020 plunges. So
awesome. Thank you, Matt. Any plunge questions, everybody? Okay. Wonderful. Well, we appreciate it, Matt. Thank you guys for being creative. Our areas and our teams use these fundraisers for sure to sustain themselves throughout the year. So we really appreciate the development team, not just scrapping these things, but being creative and still allowing us an opportunity to use them as fundraisers. So thank you guys. I encourage everybody, keep an eye out with Lisa's green list. Nancy's been adding an LPC newsletter, and we'll make sure that those COVID protocols for raffle go out once those are ready to our LPC list, and that the Plunge protocols and all that information goes out that way too. So keep an eye out for that, and we will keep moving forward. So thank you, development. We appreciate it. Any questions, as always, make sure to reach out to Wendy and Matt, and they'd be happy to chat with you. All right, so now to our sports updates. So we obviously did an announcement. When was that? Monday. It seems like weeks ago somehow. Did an announcement of announcing what we're going to be doing for bowling in this upcoming year. So that's the major thing we're going to focus on today. So if Jamie, you want to go ahead and take that away?
Sure. Thanks, Mandy. So we are excited to be here today to talk to you about bowling. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on why we chose to go the direction we did, why we chose to do modified seasons once again, and then Lisa's going to talk to you about the necessary paperwork. Mandy's going to kind of review all the COVID protocols. They're all very similar to this fall basketball challenge, but just want to review those with you. There are a few bowling specific requirements, and I'll cover those. Scott's going to go through the entire competition format with you. Nancy's going to talk about awards, and then Mandy's going to wrap up kind of telling you what we're going to do for our live Facebook events that we've continued to do through all of our recent restructured seasons. And then before we get off today, I would like to address kind of where Special Olympics Montana is headed with our sports planning for 2021, addressing both the winter season and then next spring and summer as well. So we'll cover that. So a lot to cover. If you have questions, as Mandy said, you can put them in the chat box or just wave us down. We'll try to do our best to answer those as we go. So as all of you know, the concerns over COVID continue. Numbers in Montana seem to be on a per capita rate rising rapidly. With that kind of understanding, knowing we're still sitting in phase 2 for both the state of Montana and Special Olympics International's return to activity protocols, we decided we just couldn't travel teams. It just wasn't going to be prudent and smart for teams to travel to new communities for bowling. We decided to restructure the program. So the 2021 Regional Bowling Championships in Billings, Big Fork, Butte, and Havre will be canceled, and we're going to move forward with what we have tagged our Bowling Blitz. And I will tell you, Outreach Sports, we're incredibly corny. We even came up with a tagline for it. So we just want you to know that we're going to be rocking and bowling into 2021. So you'll just have to deal with our corniness, and we apologize in advance. Thanks, Karen Davis, for being corny with us. So we are going to move forward just like we did in the Fall Basketball Challenge with 2 modified seasons. We did this after some conversation with the bowling alleys, understanding it might be easier for the bowling alleys to accommodate practices for teams if we were breaking up the seasons and not having all teams in the community hitting them up for practice at the same time. Scott's going to go into the particulars as far as the dates, but we will be running that adult season early November and until right before Christmas. Then we're going to take a nice Christmas break, give everybody a little bit of chance to regroup, and we'll kick off the school age season on January 4th. That'll run for 6 weeks. So we've decided to bump the seasons by 2 additional weeks compared to the 4 weeks that we ran for the Fall Basketball Challenge. So we're looking at a 6-week training and competition season. So Scott's going to get into those particulars. I won't rain on his parade. So before we get to that, I'd like to turn it over to Lisa. She's going to talk you guys through not only athlete, partner, coach, volunteer paperwork, but some COVID paperwork that's going to be specific that'll need to be filled out. So Lisa, take it away.
Thanks, Jamie. So I think a bunch of this, the ones that have already been participating in the Fall Basketball Challenge are kind of familiar with some of this, but you who are new and trying to get started again in bowling, there's some new things on here. As always with the paperwork, the athletes are going to need a current athlete medical, a consent, their code of conduct, and now we have the COVID-19 code of conduct, which does consist of 2 pages. This page that's up on the screen right now is the first page. This is the boxes that have to be checked that you are consenting to this document here. And then the second page is the sign page. I do need both of those pages. Even if you have athletes that are competing from home, we are still requiring these pages, both of them from them. For the volunteers and unified partners, they have to have a current volunteer application, a protective behavior test, and also the COVID-19, those 2 pages. When you receive those, you can send them in to me at lromig@somt.org, or my fax that comes directly to my email is 406-770-4456. I'll get those sent directly to me. The paperwork due dates for the adult teams will be November 30th of 2020, and the school age teams will be January 25th of 2021. Now, this is except for the COVID-19 code of conduct, which must be submitted to me no later than the first official team practice. So that's really important that those get into me after your first practice there. So in addition to these forms for the participants, all the programs must complete the COVID-19 screening and tracking form. And that's briefly what Wendy touched on. This needs to be filled out at the beginning of each practice. There you will be asking each participant 4 questions and taking their temperature. And then you'll document this on the form here. And those forms have to be done at every practice you are doing. I will also need these forms back. You can send them to me at the end of your season if you would like, or you could send me your first batch in maybe when we receive your preliminary scores, and then your final batch when your final scores are sent in, whatever works best for you. I think that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. So I'm going to talk just a little bit again about those COVID protocols of how we are going to return to play. As kind of Lisa, Jamie, and Wendy all mentioned, these are going to start to look really familiar to you until things get, quote, normal, or whatever that might even mean at this point. We're going to be going through these protocols, whether it's a practice, whether it's an event, whether it's a raffle table sales. Kind of just start thinking about it. Anytime we're gathering as a team, we're going to have to start going through these protocols. So the first thing is the screening and tracking template that Lisa just mentioned. We ask that athletes and volunteers are screened before they enter practice. With a bowling alley, we know that can be tough. We do encourage you guys to even take a look at doing this outside of the alley before people are even entering. If your alley is conducive, that there's an entrance that's away from everybody and there's an area to do that, that could be an option, but we would really prefer you guys to do this outside before anybody's interacting and intermingling with anybody else. We make sure that they are safe to practice. So make sure that they're going through the screening, as Lisa had mentioned. Ask these 4 questions here, take a temperature check, and then go ahead and write them down and track that. We do suggest sign or symptoms of COVID-19, obviously put no there, and then indicating what their temperature was when you screen them. That's just a really good indicator for us to have, and I think something that'll easily help you guys keep track. So making sure that these are happening before every practice. With any of our practice in the phase we're at right now, we can't have practices any larger than 50 people. So that does equate to bowling, but some things that we were able to ask and get clarification on is that we are only managing our numbers of 50 people. So for a practice, if there's 50 of you, but there's other people in the bowling alley that can be okay. We just want to make sure you're staying separate from those separate groups, and we can only control our numbers. So we ask that you do that, but we do ask that you include in your numbers a couple bowling alley staff, because naturally those staff are going to be interacting with us as teams, whether it's resetting balls or helping out with computers. We do realize that's going to happen. So making sure that you're counting a handful of staff in that 50 number. And Jamie will talk a little bit more about what that means bowling specific, but that should be for pretty much anything going forward while we are in phase 2. All participants must attend regularly scheduled practice. Once groups are established, they need to remain in those practice groups. Jamie will touch on that a little bit more, but what we're really trying to avoid here is that intermixing of athletes. You know, we have them at one practice, they need to stay with that group. We don't want someone from a group going to another group. Again, that just is kind of the cross. We don't want to see it increases exposure when we do that. So just be cognizant when you're scheduling your practices that we're going to remain in our groups for the whole season. We do ask that you continue to educate our athletes, whether that be with signage, whether that be with these COVID-19 participation forms. Let's just keep educating our athletes and volunteers how we stay safe in COVID, that we're constantly sanitizing, that we're staying socially distanced, and that we're wearing face masks. So make sure you're also disinfecting at all times. I would suggest when you get to the bowling alley, just, you know, bringing, whether that's wet wipes or whatever, wiping down the tables, wiping down the chairs, just making sure everything's disinfected for our athletes when we get there. And that also happens if we're doing 2 practices in a row. Let's leave enough time for when that A group leaves, that you have time in between with nobody there, that you're disinfecting, and then group B comes in. What we don't want to see is group A leaving, group B coming in, and then they're intermixing at that point. That kind of defeats the whole purpose. So make sure you're saving your time, leaving yourself plenty of time in between practices so you can disinfect and that there isn't any crossover. Face masks are going to be worn at all times. Jamie's going to touch a little bit more on that. That was a little bit different in basketball because of the physical exertion, but we are going to ask with bowling that face masks are being worn at all times. We also want for coaches, we kind of touched on this with athletes staying in their practice group. We understand that there is a lot of big teams out there where there is coaches who are going to have to cross over. Completely understandable. We just ask that you're making sure to educate those coaches that they're being ultra careful. They're always wearing their face masks, they're always sanitizing, they're always staying distance, because again, that's increasing the exposure limit by someone going from group A to group B. We know it's a reality. We just ask that you really make sure that those coaches are safe and understand that we're kind of extending, you know, some protocols there, and we just need to make sure that they're helping us be safe. So those are just the basic COVID protocols that we'll be going through pretty much for every event, and we'll get more specific as time goes by. But any questions on those? If not, Jamie will open it up into even a couple more bowling specific requirements we're going to have.
Mandy, I have a question.
Yep.
For day of event volunteers, we should have that template ready, and then they check in and do all that, and we just fill out that template for each day of event, right?
Yep,
Okay.
That's correct. Yep, our day of event volunteers need to go through the screening process as well. That's a good question. Awesome. All right, Jamie, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Mandy. So a couple of things I just kind of want to touch on a little bit more that Mandy started is the face masks. That is going to be an absolute requirement, unfortunately, with an indoor sport that's going to be congested. The athletes are not going to be physically exerting like they were for basketball, so they will be expected to wear them while they're bowling, whether it's athletes, partners, whomever. We do expect those at all times. We had the question come up the other night about whether the bowling alley staff needed to fill out the COVID-19 code of conduct. Because they're not going to have full-on contact with our athletes, they do not. Now, that could change if who knows how this situation may move forward. So we'll just keep you in the loop as to whether the alley staff would need to fill that out. But any of your volunteers who are coming to help with practices that are regularly going to be there, coaches, and then all athletes unified partners must fill that out. So just trying to help clarify that question that came up the other night. So Mandy mentioned creating kind of those set practices, and I just want to expand a little bit on that. So what we'd like to see is, Tammy, I'm going to use you as an example. I know that for your size of team, you're going to have multiple practices. We would advise that in those multiple practices, say if you have athletes set to bowl Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, they bowl on their assigned night. If they miss practice, they miss practice. But they cannot reschedule, go to another practice. That just widens the chance for exposure there. And what I would also recommend, and I really hope coaches will do it, is once you're in that alley, that you assign athletes and or partners, however you guys might want to do it, and they bowl on the same group every week. So if Tammy, Mandy, Lisa, and I are all bowling together week 1, Tammy, Mandy, Lisa, and I are going to bowl together week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. We're not going to bounce around and jump over and bowl with Karen and then bowl with Cindy and then bowl with Haley. We want to create not only set practices, but like a set practice pod, so that you're just kind of keeping the same athletes and partners together. Once again, it's just trying to reduce the exposure. And Mandy hit on this, but I just want to really dial this in. There will be others in the bowling alleys. And while our number might be maxed at 50, I think you're going to find the alleys are going to let a lot less than 50 into bowl. Billings might be the one place you guys get to take a few more than 10 or 15, like we're hearing for some of these other alleys. But just please, when you're in the alleys, make sure that once you get your people inside, they know where they're bowling, they go there, they stay there, unless they're going to the bathroom. We don't want them hanging out at the snack bar. We don't want them hanging out up at the counter at the register or wandering around through the other groups. We really have to be cognizant that once we're in there to bowl, we stay in our groups, and we bowl and we get out, which is not how we generally look at practices, but that's how we're going to look at them now. You get in, you bowl, you get training in, and you're out. So we have extra safety precautions in place. A few things that the alleys have recommended we do, and I thought these were fantastic suggestions. One is seating. So when you guys are putting your athletes and your unified partners on their lanes to start practices, think about maybe putting the athletes that are, for example, on lane 1, putting them on the deck, lane 2 down in the pit, lane 3 up on the deck, lane 4 down in the pit. Just kind of trying to rotate to create a little bit of extra space between those athletes as they wait to bowl. And the other thing that I just really want to hit on is sharing of equipment. Please make sure every athlete has their own bowling ball, and it's not me going, hey, Tammy, here, you can roll my ball this time around, or hey, Haley, can I borrow your ball this time? Every athlete has their own ball, and if we do have to have athletes sharing a ball, that it's disinfected between uses. Now, I want to clarify that. I don't expect them to disinfect the ball every time it comes back on the ball return. We realize there's going to be some indirect contact that's going to be happening. We just really want to avoid that direct contact. We don't want to see high fives. We don't want to see hugs, and we don't want to see huddles. And I know that is so anti-Special Olympics, but foot bumps with our shoes. Let's encourage that instead, so we're not having that direct skin-to-skin contact. And again, make sure, please, have not sharing their own bowling balls. So that's really the things the alleys wanted us to hit on. Once again, I think Mandy hit this, but again, kind of in the back of your mind, maybe think about having 1 or 2 of that bowling alley staff in your numbers, because like she said, it's inevitable. They're going to be down resetting a computer. They're going to be going and getting a ball that got stuck in your lane. So there will be some interaction, but not that constant interaction like another athlete, a coach, a volunteer, or a unified partner. And the other thing I just want to make sure, just like with the fall basketball challenge, no outside spectators. Mom and dad drop you off at practice. That's nice. They got to wait in the car. They're not in your numbers. Your numbers need to be your participants and your coaches. Okay. questions about any of those kind of bowling alley specifics.
And one thing, Jamie, I forgot to mention too before we turn it over to Scott, we've been mentioning a lot about screening. And in the fall
The
basketball
PPE.
challenge, we were able to help you with PPE, and we're going to continue to do that via thermometers. So we are going to be able to get your team's thermometers to do the checks. We found that most of us, we did send face masks, but I feel like at this point, most people are more comfortable with their personal ones. So those teams we sent that out to, we're hearing they still have a lot left. So we're going to help you guys out with thermometers. There is a PPE request form, a thermometer request form. I think Nancy's probably going to put that in the chat bar, and that'll go out. So make sure to do that. And even if you were with the fall challenge, say you had 20 athletes that were participating in basketball, but now you're going to have 50 in bowling, go ahead and put in another request, and we can send you additional thermometers if your team did get bigger in between the two seasons. So we definitely want to help you guys with that. We know thermometers are a big expense, and we know they're hard to come by. So we've got a bulk order for that, and we'll be able to send those out to your team.
Perfect. If there's no questions, we'll turn it over to Scott. And if you think of something in the meantime, just let us know. All right, Scott.
Hey, Scott, we can't hear you. Ruh-roh.
Scott, do you want us to have Nancy talk awards quick and circle back to you?
You guys hear me now?
There we go.
Yep.
Oh, it's always fun. You guys get to see my goofy bright blue earphones. So, yeah, yours are a dark blue though, Jamie. Mine are light blue. This was like a high school thing for me. Okay. Anyway, so I'm just gonna go through the various competition stuff that we got going on for the Bowling Blitz. So this is gonna look real similar to what the fall basketball challenge looked like. If any of you guys were, whoever participated, I know there's a handful of folks on here who didn't. But this is going to look similar. The first one I want to go over is going to be for our compete from home level. And what we're going to be doing for the compete from home is, this is targeted more towards our athletes who are not comfortable coming back to practice, or have guardians that aren't comfortable, or are high risk athletes in particular. And there's going to be 3 different skills available, bowling type skills available for these athletes to complete. And this is going to be, as opposed to the next one I'll go hit, this is going to be a participation based event. So the more events that the athletes complete, the better they're going to do when it comes to actually receiving their awards, whether they receive a medal or a ribbon. But the three different events that we're going to have set up is, one of them is called a target toss. And these are all meant to be done indoors within 15 feet is the biggest one of these events, like actually is how much feet you would need. First one's called a target toss, where your athlete will actually set up a target and then roll a ball. Any kind of round ball, could be a rolled up sock, doesn't really matter. If it's circular and it rolls, that works. And their goal is going to be to hit the target. The second one is going to be called a zone toss, where they'll actually set up a 2 foot by 2 foot zone, and then your athlete will roll the ball and try to land it inside the target zone. And then the third option is the third event that's going to be available is a more strength-based event. It's either a push-up, as many push-ups as they can do in 30 seconds, or if they can't complete a push-up, it's going to be a seated arm lift. So it's going to be just 90 degrees where they stick their arms out and they lift their arms up as high as they can go and back down. And that'll be for our athletes who want to do the compete from home stuff and aren't exactly comfortable coming back in practice. Okay, now the bigger one I want to hit, and this is the one that, where we're all talking about here, where we're actually getting together as a team in bowling, and this is our in-person competition / practice. And this is going to look, even though it's different, obviously, this is going to look very similar to what we've done at our actual past state bowling championships. So we're going to be offering, 2 different events with all the sub-events. And the first event we're going to be offering is singles, just like always, and we'll be doing singles ramp, and singles ramp assisted. So we have, all 3 of the options that we've traditionally had. And then the second event that we'll be offering is going to be doubles. So we'll be doing traditional doubles or unified doubles. So we're going to try to reintroduce the unified option in here for bowling. So hopefully if you guys have some unified partners that want to get involved, we're going to be able to do that. Okay. So if the scoring though is going to look different compared to how it has in the past. So, you know, at past bowling championships, we've asked for a 3-game average when you guys send in your scores. So this time around, we're not going to be asking for a 3-game average. All we're going to ask for is the 2 best scores your athletes are able to achieve at the various due dates. So our season is set up in the 6-week increment. So basketball was 4 weeks, bowling we're going to be doing 6 weeks. Halfway through the bowling season, so 3 weeks in, we're going to be asking for a registration form with your guys' preliminary scores on it. So for your athletes, if they're competing in singles and even if they're competing in doubles, but I'll explain that in a second. But for our athletes competing in singles, you're going to send in their 2 best scores at the 3-week increment mark. And then the next 3 weeks will be where I actually put you guys in divisions at that 3 weeks based on the scores that you guys sent in. And then you'll bowl the last 3 weeks and then send me in your final scores. And what your final scores will be, just like at the 3-week increment, was the best 2 scores your athlete achieved through the entirety of the season. So over the course of 6 weeks, you'll send in the best 2 scores. So those scores could be the same as the scores they had the first 3 weeks, but you know, the whole goal would hopefully be that they achieve better scores in that second 3-week increment. And you guys would be able to increase your scores then. And then from there, based on those final scores you send in, is how your athletes will be awarded. So, and if they're doing in person, they'll receive a gold, silver, bronze, you know, that type of thing. But we'll have Nancy's going to explain those awards here in a little bit. Okay. Now doubles, how doubles is going to work. Doubles is the same way, but we're not going to be doing the Baker system. So, you know, at past bowling championships, it's been, you know, athlete number 1 goes, athlete or unified partner 2 goes, and so forth. They just go back and forth. We're not going to be doing that. So what your unified partners are going to do, and this is something you want to keep in mind with those pods that Jamie came up with earlier, how you're going to score your unified partners is you're going to take their best 2 single scores as well. So your unified partners won't actually be competing in singles, but you're going to have them bowl 2 full singles games. And then what we'll do is we'll take your athletes' 2 best scores, and either if they're in doubles, we'll either take the second athlete or the unified partner's 2 best scores, and we'll combine those to create basically 1 big score from the 4 smaller scores. So it's very similar to if any of you have done winter sports with downhill skiing. You just take the best score of each partner. That's basically what we're going to do for bowling, is take the best scores from each teammate and put them together, and then that's going to be their doubles score. So your unified partners will be bowling singles just like the athletes, but they actually, of course, they, you know, as unified partners, they can't compete in singles. We'll just be taking those scores and putting them towards unified doubles. And if it's 2 athletes, again, they can bowl singles, they can bowl doubles. So your athletes are going to be able to bowl 2 different events, and the combinations available will be in the games information packet. And just for you LPCs who are on here, I will be sending the games information packet out. Let's see, it's Wednesday today, so tomorrow morning it'll be coming in an email to you guys. You guys can go and actually look through everything I'm talking about right now and see it written out, in case that makes more sense than what I'm saying right now. But your athletes will be able to compete in 2 different events. So, you know, singles, doubles, singles, unified doubles, or both doubles combined. And then your unified partners, of course, will just compete in unified doubles, since that's the only unified event that we'll have available. Okay. So I think that covers the competition piece. I've got 1 or 2 more things to cover real quick, and then we'll all open it up for questions from you guys. Next, first thing I want to hit is what I'm going to division your guys' athletes on. First thing I'm going to division your athletes on, or the first 2 things, they have equal weight this time around. It'll be their gender and it'll be their skill level. So the scores that you guys submit at that 3-week mark, so halfway through the season. And then the third thing I'll division them on is their age. But all 3 of those will be factors when it comes to divisioning this time around. So just so you guys are aware of that. Yes. All right, perfect. Alrighty. One more thing I do want to hit as well is we're going to have the website. So Lisa and Jamie and Mandy, they all mentioned those tracking forms earlier. So just so you know, the tracking form, there is a tracking form video available on our YouTube page, and it'll be available on our bowling page. So we're going to have like a Bowling Blitz webpage set up, and it'll be up latest by October 19th for you guys to go to somt.org, and then it's under sports. Now, we're going to distribute the actual, so I'll send you the games information packet this Thursday so you guys can look through that. But on October 26th, I'll send out the full packet. And that full packet will include all the information for the games, as well as the registration forms, so registration and scores forms, and it'll include the games information packet again in that. But everything I send in that email, unless it is athlete specific, you know, like when Lisa sends out her green lists or exceptions reports out specific athlete information, everything that comes out in that email that I'll be sending you will be on that web page. So if you guys lose something, it's going to be embedded on that actual page itself. Okay. Yeah, that's about everything I have for now. Jamie, what did I miss?
Will you go through the dates for each season, please, Scott?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I can go through the dates. This will be in the games information packet when I send it out tomorrow morning as well, everyone. So you guys, you don't have to write these down if you don't want to, because they will be in that packet that comes out in an email to you tomorrow. For the adults, now, as Jamie mentioned earlier, you guys are going to be going before Christmas and the New Year's this year. So the registration, as I mentioned, for schools and adults will be going out on the 26th of October. Your PPE request form, so for those thermometers, that link that Nancy shared, for the adults, it's going to also be due on October 26th. So if you guys need thermometers, make sure you've submitted that by then, because we're going to go ahead and put those in boxes and ship them out hopefully within a day or two after that form is due. So that's halfway point through the season, basically, from when you guys receive it. I believe we have that first part of that adult season set to start at November 9th as being the official start date of the training season. Now, if you guys have your thermometers and everything, feel free to bowl ahead of that as long as you're prepared. But the official start date is November 9th, the halfway point through the season, when all of your guys' medical paperwork and the registration, so those preliminary scores, basically, when that is due, is going to be on November 30th for the adults. Now, your guys' final scores, and keep in mind, I will division you at that November 30th date. Your final scores are going to be due on December 18th. Now, those are the scores that I'm going to grab and I'm going to take, and I'm going to give you guys awards based on that. Now, for the school season dates, it's very similar. I'm going to send out registration on October 26th. Now, for you schools, now that since you're after the New Year's, I'm actually going to resend out the registration again, probably on the week between Christmas and New Year's. So probably December 28th or in the ballpark of there. I'll resend it in case you guys lost it. Your guys' PPE request form, though, is going to be due on December 21st. So if you need thermometers, make sure you let us know, because we will send the thermometers out that week, because we are going to be doing an awards live stream, hopefully, that same week, and we can send everything out kind of together. Now, the registration, so the preliminary scores, so all your paperwork and your registration preliminary scores are going to be due on January 25th. That's the halfway point, official halfway point of that season, since we are starting, quote unquote, starting the school season officially on January 4th. And then your guys' final scores from where I take you and give, basically how you finally place and what awards you guys receive is going to be due on February 12th. And that'll wrap up the school season then as well. And of course, then at that point, when we're wrapped up, we'll be looking towards spring and summer seasons. But one more thing I wanted to, oh goodness. Yes, one more thing I wanted to mention. It had to do with divisioning. Now that we're past those seasons, is just so you guys know, if you've competed, and I think that everyone on here has competed at the regional bowling championships before. So, in the past, let's say, I know there's a lot of Yellowstone Valley folks on here. So, when we went to Billings, like the Billings adults would compete against Red Lodge because they were at the same bowling tournament. Billings schools would compete against Canyon Creek because they were at the same bowling tournament. Since we're not actually locating at regional bowling facilities like that, the divisioning is going to be against everybody statewide. So Billings adults, you guys might be bowling against Shelby Life. Billings schools, you guys will be bowling against Great Falls schools. so on and so forth. I mean, you know, basically, since we're not limited by a geographic region with this tournament, you guys will be bowling against everybody that signs up from across the state. So hopefully, I'm hoping the competition is going to be pretty significant and pretty awesome for your athletes. So, yep, that halfway point through the season, preliminary forms, divisioning. That last due date, then again, is where we'll take final scores and give you guys awards based on that. Okay. So I'd like to open it up for questions before I hand things over to Nancy. Well, awesome. I love it. Okay, Nancy, go ahead. She's got some stuff to cover too.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Okay, so I get to talk to you guys about awards. So all participants who participate in bowling will receive an award, just like fall basketball. Since Scott will be divisioning like a regular competition, those participating in with each other will be receiving the gold, silver, bronze ribbons. Then if you have an athlete competing from home, they also have the opportunity to receive those medals. If they compete all 3 events. If they compete 2 or less events, they have the opportunity to receive ribbons. And then just a few dates for you. The adult team, those final scores calculated and awards will be sent out to the areas week of December 21st, 2020. And then for the school age, those final scores calculated and then the awards will be sent out the week of February 15th, 2021. So yeah, that's all I have for awards. Does anyone have any questions? Awesome. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Nancy. And just a brief clarification on some of the awards. We are going to be working with your AMTs again. So everybody's going to receive these a little bit differently. There has been some AMTs that have been working to have an awards celebration and hosting that for you. I know Great Falls did that. I believe Yellowstone Valley it has been doing something like that. So we're going to be working directly with your area directors and AMTs to really identify if the AMT wants to put something on. They'll work with you guys and see how they can do that. Or it might end up that we just send the medals directly to you as LPCs. So we'll keep you posted as our areas are trying to figure out what they can best support you with. So we'll definitely keep you posted on that. So the thing I want to talk to us about briefly to kind of wrap up bowling is our Facebook events. For both our virtual summer games and our fall basketball challenge, we were doing an opening ceremony and a closing ceremony just by piecing videos together. That had really great attendance, and thank you for everybody that supported and shared that. We really want to try to mix it up for this season. We miss seeing our athletes, our fans miss seeing our athletes. So what we're going to try to do is do some Facebook Live events. For those of you that follow our page, Scott was able to show up to a Helena Halos practice last night and do some live streaming of their practice. We got really good response from that. People love to see it. So we're going to do something similar like that for bowling. So if that's something you're interested in, is having a staff member come to one of your bowling practices and live stream it, let us know, or we'll definitely be reaching out to a handful of you to figure out how we can really do that. If any of you watched, I'm trying to think of World Games in LA, however long that was ago, Microsoft sponsored where they had athletes interviewing other athletes and interviewing volunteers, all while sporting events were going on. That's really kind of the heart of what we're hoping this will look like. So stay tuned for that, but we hope we'll see some competition throughout the bowling season to watch on Facebook, and that'll really help us kind of publicize this. So that's what our Facebook events will look like. I think that pretty much covers everything. There is one thing I did forget to mention in practices that I want to be clear on. When it comes to our bowling practices, we have had teams in the past allow athletes to go practice at a bowling alley and then get them their scores, and then that's what counts for practice and for registrations. We aren't going to be able to do that this year. We need you guys to hold practices for those athletes to attend for the simple fact that we can't control if an athlete is by themselves without a coach or a volunteer, that they're following the COVID protocols and that they're doing everything safely. We really need our athletes that are participating with Special Olympics to come to a Special Olympics practice and do it that way. So please make sure that athletes aren't, if they're bowling for Special Olympics in order to compete here, that they're doing it at our official practice or at the at-home level. We can't have them going to a bowling alley on their own and submitting scores to us as LPCs. So that's just something to keep in mind. and make sure that we're keeping everybody safe and that we're able to kind of really keep our arms around the COVID situation as volunteers and as a staff. All right, any questions on bowling? If not, we'll go ahead have Jamie take it away and talk winter games and spring games. I think I have one question on the chat here. Okay, Tina, the good question. The recording will be ready. We'll take this and edit it a little bit, put it up on YouTube, but it should be ready by the end of the day. So we'll make sure we get that out to everybody that was on this call, and we can email you that recording, and it'll also be up on the LPC Resource Center. Good question. All right, any other questions? Okay, Jamie, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Mandy. So unfortunately, it's not like I can look in the crystal ball and give you an exact answer as to what 2021 is going to look like, but I can update you a little bit on where we are in our thought process. So I'm going to start with winter games. There has been quite a bit of conversation with the areas about whether we're going to proceed or not with winter games. At this point in time, we have had 2 areas that have already decided to cancel their winter events. That's CMR area out of Great Falls and the Five Valleys area out of Missoula. So those 2 areas are 2 of the 4 that traditionally host. A number of reasons, I think, for doing it, but I know for CMR specifically, their volunteers are of an age that they hit the high risk category, and they're just not comfortable. They'd like to take a year, regroup, and try to see what 2022 brings. For Big Sky and Glacier, those are the other 2 areas. The options still remain a possibility. Mandy and I are working not only with the area competition person, but also kind of with each of the mountains. And we also have training partners in Eagle Mount there in Bozeman and Dream Adaptive up in Kalispell in order for our athletes to properly train for at least skiing and snowboarding. So those are still options. We're weighing to see how things could work at the mountain, how things are going to, play out as far as our ability to social distance, our ability to access the lodges for keeping people warm, using restrooms, all yet to be determined. And a lot of it will be dependent on how our partners feel about training and then how the ski hills decide they're going to operate. They have a different phased approach than we do. So we're just trying to mesh everything and get it figured out. So again, 2 areas have officially canceled, 2 areas still kind of keeping their options open. I wanted to talk a little bit about floor hockey because I know we have a few teams that are participate in floor hockey in the winter, Yellowstone Valley, CMR, and sometimes Big Sky. Floor hockey at this point in time is considered a high-risk sport because of the direct contact. So I don't see any floor hockey happening unless we want to develop some sort of individual skills challenge for that sport. So if there's something that areas are interested in doing throughout the winter, a different sport, reach out to myself or Mandy, and we'll try to work with you. But winter sports are kind of all over the board at this point in time, and we'll just keep everybody updated as we progress. State summer games. I think it's the biggest question still out there. I will tell you that as a staff, we are in the process of budgeting and planning like we are going to host our state summer games in Bozeman next May 12th to the 14th. I would say that we're being cautiously optimistic is maybe the best word. We do have a games management team, batch of volunteers that have been recruited, and they are working through the planning process of whether it's venue directors working on sports, our support services crew working on getting medical coverage and food. Those plans are underway. I will say that we are very well aware we don't want to just stick our head in the sand and pretend like COVID's not here and it's going to be gone by May. So there already are discussions underway of whether we need to have contingency plans. I will tell you that as a staff, we're committed to making sure there is a contingency plan. If we do have to cancel, there will still be programming one way or another. We'll do our best to come up with something for the athletes, volunteers, families that look forward to our spring and summer events. I wish I could give you more. That's where we are today. You're going to see here in a couple of weeks, we're going to make an official announcement in Bozeman that the state summer games are coming, but you are going to hear both from our CEO, Rhonda McCarty, and I think our games directors that, again, we're being cautious and optimistic, but realistic as well. So I can't give you a perfect timeline as to when we would make the decision, but I would say it would be, it's going to be after the first of the year. We're not going to make any decisions until that time. So that's where we are today. I wish I could give you more. I do. But we're just ready to jump and be creative. And we just really appreciate all of you that have supported not only the virtual state summer games, but the fall basketball challenge. We know as volunteers that going through all these COVID protocols isn't easy, but you guys have really shown what champs you are. You're doing a great job training athletes. I will tell you, I went to the CMR awards ceremony for fall basketball challenge, and they've done such a good job of coaching the athletes that at that event, they were correcting volunteers who weren't wearing their face mask properly and weren't sanitizing often enough. So I'm really proud of our volunteer base. I think all of you as LPCs, coaches, team volunteers have done an excellent job keeping our athletes safe and doing the best you can to continue to provide programming and support the organization. So I just really want to say thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. So thoughts or questions on kind of the direction we're headed? I love you, Cara Deuce.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, thanks everybody for being on here. We really appreciate all the hard work sports is putting in to be creative and allowing us to offer some programming. Same with development. I thank everybody. Thank you guys as volunteers for taking this stuff, running, consulting with us on it. If something doesn't work for you, probably doesn't work for everybody else on this call. So please give us a call. Let us know what you're running into. That really helps us create a better program moving forward. So the last thing, I just really want to take kind of a pulse. Again, I'm very much aware of how much this is changing, how different things are from year to year. So Nancy and I have been dedicated to really getting you guys as much communication as we can, as much as we can. So I guess my big goal is make sure you have that by doing that via emails. You probably see go out by Nancy, as well as the LPC newsletter, and as well as these call-ins. But I want to make sure we're not over communicating, inundating you guys. So have you guys been comfortable with the amount that you're getting? Are these calls helpful? Should we continue to do this until we get back to normal? I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Well, we really appreciate it. We'll continue to do this as things change, as we make plans. We'll keep inviting you in and allowing the opportunity to learn more about it and ask questions. So I think that's all we really had for today. We appreciate everybody. Have any questions, reach out to any of us here on staff and we'll get you all lined up. But we're excited to hear those bowling pins again and see everybody, hitting those strikes, doing the turkey dance, all that fun stuff. So we appreciate it, everybody. And staff will stay on here if you want to ask us any questions individually. We'll stay on for a little bit, but thanks everybody. We appreciate it.
I have a quick question about summer games.